When Kim Sung-un first visited North Korea, he saw a barren land devastated by famine, its trees stripped by people desperate to heat their homes. He could still picture the corpses floating down the Tumen River on its border with the south. Sometimes there was just one body, sometimes 2 or 3, he said. They'd probably all starved to death. How is this even possible in this modern era of liberalism, connectivity, transparency, innovation, and progress that a country becomes so unforgiving to its people? Well, North Korea and its dictators are in a league of their own. The unforgivable regime has proven to be a nightmare for its 26 million inhabitants. Why is the situation so bad? Kim Jong-un has been in charge since his father Kim Jong-il died in 2011. As the third in the Kim dynasty, he's continued the regime's brutal policies and belligerent posturing. He's purged high-ranking officials and crushed dissent. Internationally, he's pursued a nuclear weapons program and been hit with sanctions. Domestically, he's had human rights abuses, economic mismanagement, and a cult of personality around the Kim family. North Korea is a bad place for its citizens, especially when it comes to basic needs like food, healthcare, and education. One of the main reasons for this is the regime's priority on military spending over civilian needs. The government's military-first policy pours a big chunk of the country's resources into the military, leaving little for agriculture, healthcare, and education. Agricultural inefficiency makes food scarcity worse. The state's collective farming system, combined with outdated farming practices and frequent natural disasters, has resulted in chronic food shortages. This has led to widespread malnutrition and stunted growth among children. Healthcare in North Korea lacks resources, modern equipment, and trained medical professionals. Many hospitals don't have basic supplies like antibiotics and sterile syringes, and power outages hinder medical care. The healthcare system is also corrupt, where access to better treatment requires bribes. Education is free and mandatory, but heavily indoctrinated. The curriculum focuses more on idolizing the Kim dynasty and loyalty to the regime than providing education. Resources like textbooks and school supplies are often outdated or scarce. International sanctions to curb the regime's nuclear program have also added to the people's economic hardship by limiting access to basic goods and international aid. In short, the North Korean government's policies and priorities and external sanctions have created an environment where the basic needs of the people are ignored, and people suffer. Keeping all these things in mind, it's no wonder the citizens of North Korea want to escape. How to do a North Korean escape? There are several ways North Koreans try to escape from the Hermit Kingdom, but these ways pose serious threats to the lives of the escapees and their families back in North Korea. We'll explain later how. Crossing the Yalu or Tumen rivers into China is one of the most popular ways for North Korean defectors. The Yalu River is especially popular because of its length and the fact that it freezes in winter, making it slightly easier to cross. However, this route is very dangerous because of the heavy presence of North Korean border guards who are allowed to shoot on sight. Many defectors try to cross at night to avoid detection. Once in China, defectors usually try to reach a third country where they can apply for asylum. Thailand and Mongolia are popular destinations because of their relatively more open policy towards North Korean refugees. The journey through China is treacherous because defectors have to avoid Chinese authorities, who often collaborate with North Korean officials to catch and repatriate defectors. Once in a third country, defectors can apply for asylum and are often resettled in South Korea or other welcoming countries. The second way is the underground railroads. They're secret networks that help North Korean defectors move from one safe house to another. These networks are run by Christian missionary groups and human rights NGOs. The journey can take months or even years and involves many safe houses and helpers who risk their lives to help defectors. Despite the danger, they've helped many North Koreans escape. Kim Sung-un is a notable name in helping the North Koreans escape their nightmares. He started his underground railroad in 2000 after falling in love with Park Esther, an early defector who he met shortly after she crossed into China. Now, both are pastors, their dedication to the cause boosted by the tragic death of their son. He passed away when he was 7, he said. We were distraught, crying all the time and even questioning God. But then we realized that our son was in heaven and we should dedicate our lives to making him proud by giving more love to defectors. Moving on, some defectors resort to paying border guards to escape North Korea. Bribes can be money or goods and require a lot of resources and connections. While this can work, sometimes it's very risky, because if the bribe is rejected or the guard decides to report the defector, the consequences are severe: imprisonment or death. Now, let's see how the North Korean regime tries to stop its defectors. Border control. North Korea has some of the strictest borders in the world, especially along the demilitarized zone, famously known as the DMZ, with South Korea. The DMZ is mined, fenced, and wired. You can't even get close without being seen. The border with China is less fortified but has armed guards and surveillance equipment. The guards are told to shoot to kill anyone who tries to cross illegally. The regime has also installed infrared cameras and motion sensors to detect any movement near the borders. Harsh punishments for defectors and their families. The North Korean regime punishes those who try to defect severely. Punishments can be imprisonment in brutal concentration camps or public execution to serve as an example to others. Those imprisoned are subjected to forced labor, torture, starvation, and no medical care. Many defectors who are caught are publicly shamed and harshly interrogated to get information about their motives and networks that help them escape. This harsh treatment is not only a punishment, but also a powerful deterrent to others who want to defect. If someone does manage to escape the country, the regime uses a policy of guilt by association, where the family of defectors are punished to deter others from fleeing. When someone defects, their immediate and even extended family members can be imprisoned, forced to labor, or persecuted. This is to create a sense of collective responsibility and fear, so potential defectors think twice about the consequences of their actions on their loved ones. Families of defectors are under state surveillance and often face social ostracism, loss of jobs, and denial of basic services. This cruel practice reinforces the regime's control by instilling fear and loyalty among the population. State surveillance and restricted movement. The North Korean regime has a network of informants in every community, workplace, and even within families. According to defectors and human rights organizations, informants are rewarded for reporting any suspicious behavior or plans to escape. The regime also uses technology to monitor, hidden cameras and wiretapping. Fear of being reported by neighbors or colleagues creates an atmosphere of mistrust and paranoia, making it almost impossible to plan or execute an escape. In North Korea, citizens need official permission to travel within the country. This is managed through a travel permit system, which is hard to get, especially for those living near the border. Unauthorized travel is punished severely, with arrest and detention. Checkpoints are set up all over the country, where guards will inspect travel documents and personal belongings. This restricted movement makes it hard for citizens to move around freely and makes it complicated to reach the border secretly. For example, many defectors have described the tight security measures and frequent checks they had to evade while trying to escape. Control of communication. The North Korean government controls all forms of communication. Telephones, landlines, and mobile are monitored, and internet access is severely restricted and censored. Only a small elite group of the population has access to the global internet, while the general population can only access a domestic intranet called Kwangmyong. This intranet is limited to state-approved content, which is propaganda and educational material. International calls and use of foreign media are strictly forbidden and punishable by imprisonment. For example, defectors have described the risks of secretly contacting brokers or family members abroad to arrange their escape, knowing that any intercepted communication could mean severe punishment. This shows how much control the regime has over its people, and it makes it hard to escape and hard to live. Labor camps and propaganda. The North Korean government has a massive propaganda machine to control its people. State media is always broadcasting images and stories about the Kim dynasty and how the outside world is evil. For example, the government says North Korea is a utopia and South Korea and Western countries are poor and hostile. In 2020, North Korea was ranked 180 out of 180 countries on the World Press Freedom Index. North Korea has a huge network of forced labor and re-education camps, known as Kwanliso, where those who try to defect are sent. It's estimated there are 80,000 to 120,000 political prisoners in these camps, suffering brutal conditions, forced labor, and constant indoctrination. Former inmates have reported severe malnutrition, sexual assault, torture, and execution. The Committee for Human Rights in North Korea has documented these abuses extensively, using satellite imagery and testimony from defectors. Furthermore, the regime spreads misinformation to control the narrative about the outside world. North Korean media portrays defectors as traitors who live miserable lives abroad. For example, defectors who have settled in South Korea are shown as living in extreme poverty and facing constant discrimination. The government's disinformation campaign is to make people hopeless about defection so they don't even think about escaping. According to defector testimonies, many North Koreans believe these lies until they experience life outside the country themselves. North Korea has a long history of working with neighboring countries, especially China, to catch and repatriate defectors. China, which shares a border with North Korea, returns defectors as illegal economic migrants, not refugees. According to Human Rights Watch, thousands of North Koreans have been forcibly repatriated from China over the years and face severe punishment upon return. In recent years, increased border security and surveillance have made it even harder for defectors to escape through China. Facts and figures of escapees. Exact numbers on how many North Koreans have escaped or been caught are hard to come by and vary over time due to the secretive nature of North Korea and the topic. As of recent reports, over 33,000 North Koreans have defected to South Korea since the Korean War ended in 1953. This includes those who escaped through various routes, including China and Southeast Asian countries before settling in South Korea. Thousands of North Koreans have been caught and forcibly repatriated to North Korea over the years, mostly by China. This often means severe consequences for the defectors, including imprisonment, forced labor, and in some cases, death. With time, North Korea is implementing further restrictions for North Koreans. Relations with the West have deteriorated further in 2024. Now, only sheer luck can help the future escapees. Well, that'll be it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any updates from us. As always, see you in the next one.